Hello everyone. Ang ating pag-uusapan sa ating diskusyon ngayong araw na ito is all about the aggregates under ng subject nating Construction Material and Testing. Pinakauna sa lahat, kailangang ibigay muna natin ang definisyon ng aggregates. Aggregates are inert materials which are mixed with binding material such as cement or lime for manufacturing of mortar or concrete. Kailangan talaga ng aggregates dahil ang konkreto natin ay magiging brittle kung semento lamang magiging sangkap nito. Pangalawa, aggregates are used as filler in mortar and concrete and also to reduce their cost. Now, let us have the classification of aggregates. Depending upon the size of their particles, aggregates are classified as, di na malingit sa kalaman natin na mayroong dalawang klasifikasyon tayo ng aggregates, and these are the following. Una, we have the fine aggregates, followed by the coarse aggregates. So ano ba ang kaibaan ng coarse aggregate sa fine aggregate? Una sa lahat, ibigay muna natin uli ang definition ng aggregate. Aggregate are granular material of mineral composition such as sand, gravel, shale, slag, or crushed stone. Actually, parehong may crushed stone ang coarse aggregate at saka ang fine aggregate. Depende kung nagpapass ba yan sa mga sieve analysis na tinatawag natin kapag tinetest natin ang ating aggregate. Ano ba ang ibig sabihin ng coarse aggregate? Predominantly retained on the 4.75 mm or number 4 size of sieve. Kapag yan ay na-retain sa 4.75, classified as coarse aggregate. Fine aggregate, completely passing through the 9.5 mm or 3/8 inch sieve na size ng ating ginagamit sa sieve analysis. Depending upon the shape of their particles, aggregates are also classified as the following. First, we have the rounded aggregates. Ito yung smooth ang texture. And then we also have the irregular or partly rounded aggregates. Some portion of it is rounded. Ang iba naman ay mayroong konting pagka-angular ang aggregate na meron. Then, third classification, we have the angular aggregates, flaky aggregates, elongated aggregates. Fine aggregates whose particles pass through 4.75 mm sieve are termed as fine aggregates. Kapag yan ay lagpas na, dumaan na sa 4.75 mm size ng sieve, pwede na nating tawaging fine aggregates. Most commonly used fine aggregates are sand, pit or quarry sand, river sand, and sea sand. And crushed stone also in powdered form. However, sometimes suki and ash are cinder or also used. First, we have the sand under the classification fine aggregates. Sand defined as consisting of small angular or rounded grains of silica, depending upon the source from which it is obtained, and it is classified as pit or quarry sand. It is found as deposited in soil and is to be excavated out. Its grains are generally sharp or angular. It should be free from organic matter and clay. It is usually considered to be the best fine aggregate for use in mortar and aggregate. So yung buhangin na nanggaling sa quarry, ito yung ginagamit natin sa ating construction project. Ginagamit natin itong materyales para makapagtatag tayo ng konkretong matibay. Nang sa gayon ay hindi naman maging brittle ang konkreto natin ng sangkap na naaluan ng fine aggregates. River sand, it is obtained from the banks and beds of rivers. It may be fine or coarse. Fine sand obtained from beds and banks of rivers is often found mixed with silt and clay, so it should be washed before use. But coarse sand is generally clean and excellent for use, especially for plastering. Just take a look at this picture. Yan ang halimbawa ng sea-sand na larawan natin o imahe natin. It consists of fine rounded grains of brown color, and it is collected from seashores or sea beaches. Sea sand usually contain salts, and while using that in mortar, etc., causes disintegration of the work in which it is used. In RCC work, the salts will attack reinforcement if salt content is high. The salts may cause efflorescence. It should be used locally after thorough washing. So, hindi lang yung sisa ng maalat, ano? Even yung water ng sea, syempre, maalat din yan. Kaya iniwasan natin gamitin sa ating mixture of concrete. Iba kasi kapag may asin or maalat yung tubig, and at the same time, ang fine aggregates na gagamitin natin, kailangan free of salt content. Crushed stone. It is obtained by crushing the waste stones of quarries to the particular size of sand. As I mentioned a while ago, bakit ito na-classified as fine aggregate? It is because of the reason that I've mentioned to you already sa ating past slide. Sand obtained by crushing a good quality stone is excellent fine aggregate. Mortar made with the sand is usually used in aslar work, good quality of work. Ang ibig sabihin ng aslar work. Coarse aggregate bilang second classification ng aggregate, ito yung mga aggregate na hindi nagpapas sa 4.75 mm size ng sieve. Kapag yan ay hindi nagpass o dumaan sa size ng sieve na 4.75 mm, ang aggregate natin can be classified then as a coarse aggregate. These are commonly used coarse aggregates na tinatawag nating crushed stone, gravel, broken pieces of burnt bricks, and etc. Under ng coarse aggregate, may tinatawag tayong crushed stone. It is actually an excellent coarse aggregate and is obtained by crushing granite, sandstone, or grain limestone, and all types of stones. Crushed stones are used for the construction of roads and railways, trucks, etc. When it comes to the gravel, it is they're very good coarse aggregate type. It is obtained from riverbeds, quarries, and seashores. The gravel obtained from seashores should be well washed with fresh water before use in order to remove the impurities, which may be clay, salts, silt, etc. Kailangan maugasan muna ng fresh water ang gravel natin, and para ma-remove naman yung contaminants like yung salt, silt, and clay. It is commonly used in the preparation of concrete. Broken pieces of bricks. It is also a good artificial source of coarse aggregates. It is obtained by breaking well-burnt bricks. It is generally used in lime concrete at places where aggregates from natural sources are either not available or are expensive. It can be used at places where low strength is required. It should be watered well before using it in the preparation of concrete. It is commonly used for mass concrete in foundations and underfloors. Now we have the good qualities of an ideal aggregate. So, paano ba natin masasabing ideal aggregate ang isang aggregate? Kailangan taglay niya ang magagandang kalidad na maaari nating gamitin sa ating construction projects. An ideal aggregate used for the manufacturing of concrete and mortar should meet the following requirements. At naririto ngayon ang ating mga requirements para matawag natin ang isang aggregate ay kalidad at maaasahan. Una sa lahat, it should consist of natural stones, gravel and sand, or in various combinations of these materials. It should be hard, strong, and durable. It should be dense, kailangan may timbang yan, clear and free from any coating. It should be free from injurious vegetable matters. It should not contain flaky or angular and elongated pieces. It should not contain any material liable to attack steel reinforcement in case of reinforced concrete, katulad halimbawa ng salt. For the quality test of aggregates, we have the first one. Actually, mamayang konti, no? There are so many tests which are to be performed to check the quality of aggregates, but some important tests are discussed below. So ito na yung mga testing na ginagawa natin kapag nagtitest tayo ng aggregates. Una sa lahat, may tinatawag tayong crossing test of aggregate. The aggregate crossing value gives a relative measure of resistance of an aggregate to crossing under a gradually applied compressive load. The aggregate crossing strength value is a useful factor to know the behavior of aggregates when subjected to wear. Aggregate crossing value is always equal to W sub 2 over W sub 1 times 100%. And then the crossing value to obtain must not exceed the following. First, aggregate used for concrete other than wearing surface must be equal to 45%, 30% for concrete for wearing surfaces, and for the flexible pavements, these are the qualifications. WBM must be 50%, BM is 40%, bituminous surface dressing must be equal to a percentage of 30, dense mix is 30%, and for the rigid pavements, other than wearing course, must be 45% and 30% for surface wearing course. And that's all about the crossing test of aggregate. Another test, we call it as the impact value test. The aggregate impact value gives a relative measure of the resistance of an aggregate to sudden shock or impact. The impact value is sometimes used as an alternative to its crossing value. Aggregate impact value is similar to the formula that we have before. W sub 2 over W sub 1 times 100%. It must be less than 10%. Ibig sabihin yan, exceptional strong. But when the value is between 10 to 20, or ranging from 10 to 20%, it is classified as strong. 10 to 30% satisfactory for road surfacing. Another qualification, if it is greater than 35%, weak for road surfacing naman. Definition natin dyan. And then we also have the abrasion test. So we have to determine the abrasion value. The aggregate abrasion value gives a relative measure of resistance of an aggregate to wear when it is rotated in a cylinder along with some abrasive charge. Abrasion value must not exceed, okay, for the first one, aggregate to be used in concrete wearing surfaces must be 30%. Aggregate to be used in other concrete must be 50% or must not be lower than 50%. And then we also have the sieve analysis test. Ito yung pamamaraan para malaman natin kung ang klasifikasyon ba ng aggregate is fine or coarse. In determination of the proportion of the particles within certain ranges in an aggregate by separation on various sieves of different size openings may be defined as the sieve analysis. Then we have the fineness modulus, or FM, the sum of cumulative percentage of residues retained on each of the Indian standard sieves. First, we have the 80 millimeter, 40 millimeters, 20 millimeters, 10 millimeters, 4.75 millimeters, 2.36, 1.18, 600 microns, 300 microns, and 150 microns. Each succeeding sieve as up the aperture of the previous one, divided by the 100 is known as the fineness modulus of the aggregates. The fineness modulus of an aggregate is roughly proportional to the average size of particles of the aggregates. And then let us also have the acronym OR, which means index number expressing the relative sizes of both coarse and fine aggregates, and it is called as the fineness modulus. The sand fineness modulus, it will be fine to 2.6 and medium to 2.9, coarse to 3.2. This is recommended, actually. It is recommended that the fineness modulus of sand should not be less than 2.5 and should not be more than 3. Aggregates are classified into two categories according to their size, as I've mentioned a while ago. Coarse aggregates, these are the aggregates with a size more than 4.75. In laboratories, they are separated as the aggregates, which are retained on the BIS test sieve. BIS test sieve number. Generally, broken stones are used as the coarse aggregates. Fine aggregates, these are the aggregates which has size less than 4.75. In laboratory, they are classified as the aggregates which passes through the BIS sieve number. In general, natural river sand is used as fine aggregate. Now we'll be discussing the characteristics of the coarse aggregates. As per IS, shape of the particles of the aggregates may be round, angular, flaky. Rounded particles do not have good interlocking, whereas irregular and angular particles show very good interlocking properties. Rounded particles show good workability. This is a rough surface to get better bond. Kaya nga yan ang dahilan kung bakit mas magandang gamitin ang angular type of aggregate. Kasi nga magaspang yan, unlike the rounded aggregate, matino yan, smooth ang texture. They should have a rough surface to get better bond between particles and cement phase. Porosity and water absorption should be less. Harmful ingredients such as irons, iron pyrites, coal, mica, shale, clay, alkali, and organic impurities should be avoided. These materials should not be present in such quantities that they may affect strength and durability of the concrete. Total amount of deleterious materials in aggregate should not be exceeding 5%. For the flakiness and elongation index, thickness gauge size must be 3/5 of mean dimension, and the length gauge size must be 9/5 of the mean dimension. When it comes to density, dalawang klase ang density . Una, pag-usapan muna natin yung bulk density of aggregate. The bulk density or unit weight of an aggregate is the mass or weight of the aggregate that is required to fill a container of a specified unit volume. Ito yung formula natin. Bulk density is simply equal to mass over volume. And the other one, we have the relative density of aggregate. The relative density, or known as specific gravity of an aggregate, it is actually the ratio of its mass to the mass of an equal volume of water. And this is the formula for the relative density that we may use during our testing. Mass of the aggregate divided by the mass of equal volume of water. So ang ratio ng timbang ng aggregate sa mass ng volume ng tubig. Key features. Most aggregates have a relative density between 2.4 to 2.9 with no corresponding particle mass density of 2,400 to 2,900 kilogram per cubic meter, or in terms of pounds per cubic feet, 150 to 181 ang ranges natin. Here, for coarse aggregate, the standard test method has been explained in ASTM C127 for ASTO, and for fine aggregates, the standard test method has been explained in ASTM C128 of ASTO again. And the relative density of an aggregate can be determined on an oven-dry basis or a saturated surface dry, o tinatawag nating SSD basis. After the density, we also have what we call the abrasion. Abrasion test is the measure of an aggregate toughness and abrasion resistance such as crushing, degradation, and disintegration. The percentage wear of the sample aggregates due to rubbing with steel balls is determined and is known as the Los Angeles abrasion value. Why is abrasion testing significant? Bakit nga ba? Abrasion testing determines the relative quantity, the toughness, and the durability of mineral aggregates subjected to impact and abrasion. What is the purpose of this abrasion test? Abrasion test, it is carried out to test the hardness property of aggregates and to decide whether they are suitable for different pavement construction works. Ito kasi yung makakatulong natin kung okay ba yung aggregate. Kailangan muna nating i-test yung abrasion test niya para malaman natin kung kaya-aya ba itong gamitin sa pavement na kinoconstruct natin. The principle of Los Angeles abrasion test is to find the percentage wear due to relative rubbing action between the aggregate and mass traffic. So ito yung itsura ng ating Los Angeles abrasion test machine. Sa right side, makikita natin yan. And then sa left side, ito naman yung ating ginagamit ng mga sieve sa pagtetest ng aggregate or sieve analysis na tinatawag nating testing. And that's all for today. Thank you and God bless.